Very warm welcome, our distinguished speakers, our participants. Depending on where you are around the world, I would say a good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. Welcome to this online conference, Innovating for a Greener Future in Asia. My name is TJ. I'll be your host moderator for this opening session, session one. This event has been organized by the Asian Network in partnership with the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, or ERIA, with the support from Australia Aid. We've gathered thought leaders from across Asia today to share their expertise, their thoughts in the future of environment, of climate change, and also technology for social good. This conference will take the form of panel discussions across 4 sessions: technological trends to mitigate climate change, interconnected risks, environmental dangers threatening economic growth and viability. In session 3, we will talk about the environmental future in Asia, opportunities and hope. And finally, in the closing session, we will go into green financing and ESG investments. To start us off, I want to introduce our guest speaker who will be giving us the opening remarks. Ms. Huda Jaffer, she is the co-chair of the Sustainability Startup 20 Task Force. She's also the director of Selco Foundation and has a keen interest in really user-centric design, specifically for sustainability and developmental issues. She has been critical in building the necessary processes of the foundation that have led to it being known as a pioneer in the field of building the ecosystem for sustainable energy across the country and access for the poor. She's unfortunately unable to join us live in person today, but she has kindly taken time to just record this video message for all of us. So if you could have the video recording, please.
Welcome everyone to the conference, Innovation for a Green Future Asia 2023. I'd like to start by thanking the Asian Network and ERIA for the opportunity and for giving all of us the opportunity to sort of come together on this platform and have candid discussions around some of the most pressing topics that haunt us as a society today. Over the years on the field, working with stakeholders across different levels, there are some learnings that I wanted to sort of hone in on today. First and foremost, I think when people talk about climate, there is always this distinction between, should we focus on mitigation versus adaptation? I mean, I think over the years, what we realized and learned is that the lines are so blurry, and no matter what, adaptation solutions are going to give us very strong future mitigation solutions as well, and maybe also those transformational mitigation solutions that is actually going to reduce emissions. So the one thing that I do want to tell practitioners is not to differentiate or exclude between adaptation and mitigation. Both are just as important, and focusing on a just transition and keeping inclusion at the center of the climate challenge can really help us get there. So that's one of the learnings that I wanted to focus on. The second is about technology. I know that a lot of the discussions today will be focused around technology. And I think in the sector, when we work with a lot of stakeholders, including enterprises that have the best intentions and talk about how technology will solve the challenge of climate and inclusion today, one of the things that I want to, really hopefully drive home is that let's be technology driven and not technology led. Yes, technology is critical and crucial, but let's not forget that at the heart of the problem is people and planet, and using technology as a driver towards solving that. The goal is not to deploy technology, the goal is to actually solve the problem. So the one thing that I would sort of really push the audience today and the participants today to do is to move from talking, let's say, for example, about solar water pumps to talking about the problem of irrigation water. Instead of looking at solar water pumps with at the end of it, if you're going to suck out water for free or for a subsidized rate, or you're incentivizing people to do solar water pumps, it's going to lead to water table depletion, right? How do we look at the problem, including irrigation as a challenge, water tables as a challenge, combination of protective irrigation, pump ponds, sprinklers, and solar water pumps being part of that mix, right? So shifting the problem from solar water pumps to irrigation, efficient irrigation for small and marginal farmers. Shifting the problem from electric vehicles to solving for transportation problem, which includes infrastructure, services, and other elements that are very crucial to actually solving the problem of public transportation, not just an EV, right? And maybe another example is also, a lot of times we talk about agri-cooling and agri-cold storages. How do we shift that from not talking about the technology to talking about the post-harvest losses problem? And suddenly you will find that these are systemic challenges where one needs to work on the complete ecosystem of building local capacities, supply chains, of ensuring that linkages are in place. Financing is one of the silver bullets for a lot of these solutions to actually be deployed in the right manner with the right stakeholders. And least but most critical, ensuring that policies are in place that provide an enabling conditions for stakeholders to solve towards these some of these problems like electric, transportation or agriculture or food losses, right? And the third and last learning which I have had, which has probably been the most effective over the last few years, has actually been not talking about climate in climate forums, not talking about climate to climate people, but really sort of making climate a default thought process into the other development goals. If the mother and child care development department is planning daycare centers, climate needs to be part of that planning process, right? If the health department is planning, climate needs to be part of it. Livelihood, agriculture, animal husbandry, every single development agenda that we have today, if it uses climate as a default planning process, it will lead to multifold scaling and reaching of the climate goals, rather than sort of treating climate as, okay, let's do this and let's get this done, and then let's think of climate as an afterthought. So it's very critical to not have climate adaptation or mitigation as an afterthought, but to have it sort of front and center as a driver towards reaching that goal. One of the things that I have realized is that by not really focusing on climate, but by focusing on solving that need today in an urgent manner, in a feasible manner, in an affordable manner, automatically today what you're going to come up with is the most climate friendly solution. So let's not be defensive. Let's not sort of protect or say that certain forms of energy are more viable or are more feasible. I think let's say that if we design today for people and plan for people today, it is automatically going to be the best solution is going to be climate friendly from a financial perspective, feasibility, as well as a timeline perspective. So with that, thank you so much again for having me. I wish everyone very, very candid deliberations, and I hope that a wonderful discussion occurs. And I look forward to engaging with the participants and the audiences here moving further. And hopefully we will not be diplomatic, because we don't have the time to be diplomatic. So let's push for better systems, let's push for better outcomes, and let's push for better action on the ground through these discussions. Thank you so much.
Very thought-provoking opening remarks from Huda. Next, I want to introduce Mr. Albert Ong. He is the founder and president of World Green Organization, a green entrepreneur, social reformist, environmentalist with over 38 years of international experience focused in the green economy. In that role, in recognition of his contributions, he was appointed as the chairman of the Green Economy Task Force of UNESCAP, the United Nations Environment and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, as well as a Sustainable Business Network since 2020. So I want to quickly hand the floor over to Albert to share his thoughts as well. Albert, please. Albert, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry that I have a sore throat, so anyhow, I try my best. Good morning to everybody. I would like to share my views on global perspective because the world has undergone a very radical, I would say, quite unprecedented geopolitical situation in the world. But on the other hand, I must point out that we have a much clearer situation of what we are heading for by saying that we are doing the right thing from some of the wrong thing or even from the gray area. So for us, actually, we now redefine the word green with a new meaning, having said that it is about doing goodness and kindness with moral ethics. In that case, it is more than environmental friendly. So we thought like nowadays, we shouldn't be talking more or only talking about principles, but we should be referring more to best practices. So because there are a lot of technical, or I would say commercially viable solutions available nowadays in the world. It's just that how the government or the business community or even the social community are going to adopt it in what way. In a fast pace where we provide totally integrated solution to make it happen, or we are adopting the same old same old mindset, but without looking forward for future solution. Because the future solution now we have so many new, even invention, product-wise or system-wise or policy-wise that needed to be meshed in doing so. So for the sake of doing it in a much broader way, the UN ESCAP has launched the Asia Pacific Green Deal last year, where this is a policy framework which are different from the European Green Deal or the North American New Green Deal. So what we would like to say is that the whole framework is based on Asian values, okay, which we are focused on, realistic situation or prominent issues on life above economic growth. So these are the things that we are doing it in a very comprehensive way. So even last year, actually, the ASEAN chairman has also started to do this ASEAN Green Deal for this particular region. So in the post-pandemic era, what we need to do now is to equip ourselves with new mindset, of visionary views of how we want to do, how we plan ourselves in the next 10, 20 years. With that, then we must abandon our old mindset by adopting the new green mindset in changing the current situation in the world. So kind of like we are now promoting kind of quantum leapfrogging exercises to adopt a holistic approach in employing total integrated solutions. So what I'm trying to say is that please be prepared, please prepare yourself because the world has changed. The business practices nowadays, especially after the post-pandemic era, has changed a lot. The cost structure is different. The approach, everything is different. because of, my sharing is that in the past 2 years, although in the pandemic period, I've been traveling very extensively to a lot of countries, a number of countries in the Asia Pacific region. What we find out is that a lot of things has changed, and a lot of businesses or even institution has been destroyed, and the remaining companies or institutions or even the government got to have a new mindset in reviving the economy. So unless you are equipped with this kind of mindset and prepare yourself, you'll be wiped out very shortly. So anyhow, please look at a lot of things in a global perspective, because but actually because we are also fortunate that we have the internet, we have the blockchain, we have IoT. There's a lot of things that are available in the world nowadays, but we have to employ that and make a master planning to work out the situation that you are in. So this is my remarks, where even when we are talking about facing the global warming issue pertaining to economic development, actually nowadays what we are trying to do is as I share again and again, we need a holistic approach, a new mindset to address all issues at the same time. So I hope today's forum will be a very productive and also a very encouraging one, because I hope everybody who are hearing us is a super positive thinker, because by doing so, then you can go green. So please enter the green transformation that you have, because this is not about only environmental friendly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Albert. Even in the opening remarks, I think our thoughts have already been somewhat provoked. Yeah. Looking at things from a holistic approach, requiring a paradigm shift. And, I like how Hu Dao shared, let's not be diplomatic about it. Let's look at the problems that we have. And as we look at how we can solve those problems, then the other things would fall in place. Let me just then introduce our panelists for this morning. First we have Ochlon, founder and CEO of Eureka. It's a Singapore-based climate tech startup with the mission to make carbon offsetting accessible for all. Ochlon has been a renewable energy investor with more than 10 years of experience managing across project finances, mining infrastructure. And while originally from Mongolia, he has shifted his business is now based in Singapore. He was just sharing with us in terms of really the temperature differences and also, how things are back home. So thank you for joining us, Ochlon. Next, we have Divya, founder of Beru. Beru, which means roots in Kannada, has the mission to coastal communities active participants in climate action through the mitigation of ocean plastic pollution and the development of a circular economy. So this looks at really partnership with local government bodies, infrastructure development, and livelihood generation for rural women. In 2022, her climate project that she undertook in her university was recognized as one of the top 100 Green Citizens projects globally. And she also won a .org Impact Award for Environment Stewardship in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us, Divya.
Ravindra, you're muted.
Oh, my apologies. Did I just do the whole intro muted?
No, only the third intro you started muted.
Okay. Technology has its good and bad, so one must always be on the lookout. Yeah. Let me quickly introduce Dr. Anbu. He is the Director of Research Strategy and Innovation at ERIA, with really more than 15 years of broad experience in impact evaluation of developmental projects at both strategic and operational level. He has been a member of the G20 Task Force on Sustainable Infrastructure Financing, and also the APEC Working Group on Green Growth and ASEAN Expert Panel on SDGs. So we have with us a very robust panel this morning. Without further ado, I'd like to jump straight into the conversation with them. So perhaps, Ochlon, if you could share with us, as a start, what made you start this business?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I think it's a good question. And to your earlier point, it's great to hear that we need to be very candid around the discussions happening in this space. And for me, I think I realized a few things. So I guess the main reason I started Eureka, we sort of founded Eureka, was because I became a father. So I've got 2 kids now. One, my older daughter is turning 3 this week in 2 days, and then my son is a year and a half. So I think that sort of gave me a lot of perspective as to what sort of world my kids will grow up, as cliche as that sounds. But I think the other thing was we just needed to shift the focus around climate change. So in my previous lifetime, as you mentioned, I used to do renewable investments across Asia, Northeast Asia. So we worked with SoftBank, with General Electric, the IFC, ADB, etc. And then I was going around farms and solar farms, and I thought I was doing this great big favor to everyone, right? Because it is a good thing to do. But then when we spoke to sort of people on the ground in the Gobi Desert, where we were building a 50 megawatt wind farm together with SoftBank, I realized the level of disassociation and just not really having buy-in into the whole climate discussion from the people on the ground, right? Because, and rightly so, right? I think one of the things that I've sort of realized is that to really care about what the planet looks like in 20, 30 years' time, you need to be in a position of you need to be able to afford to care about climate change in some sense, especially in developing countries. Whereas I think, a lot of people from communities, grassroots communities in developing countries, they've got much more short-term pressing problems, such as where are they going to get food and water from in a month's time? How are they going to pay for their children's healthcare and education? And when you try and engage with them on the topic of climate change, one of the responses I've gotten was, I don't even know if I'll be alive in 20 to 30 years. So, why should I care about this now? So that was on one side. And then on the other side, I think, what we wanted to do through Eureka was to build a platform through carbon offsets that energized and mobilized a global community of ordinary people to look into climate investing and hopefully ignite and spark that interest. Because again, to be very blunt, I think this whole discussion around climate change is a bit boring, to be very honest with you, and it's very hard to again engage in effective dialogue with ordinary people across the world, right? So we wanted to sort of build a platform that makes it exciting, makes it fun, makes it interesting to engage everyday people in climate investing, and hopefully through that, spark as you said, a new sort of paradigm shift in the global discussion around how people think about climate change.
Thanks very much, Ochlon. Along the same lines, because you mentioned something about the bottom line of ability to afford to care about climate change, I want to then swing over to Divya, because I think what you're doing is somewhat also related to addressing this issue. Divya, what made you start Beru?
Thank you for the question and having me on this panel. Very similar to what Ochlon said about the gap between the official climate sector's language and what vulnerable groups view as climate change. They view it as livelihoods, they view it as health and safety, they view it as survival. What do you do from one day to the next, and how do you take care of your family? So we saw that there's a huge gap between what we're all harping about and what people on the ground feel. And when I talk about livelihoods and safety and health, we look at women specifically in this instance because we are working management, and women are the primary decision makers for waste segregation at home. There's that aspect, and there's also the other aspect of many of these women don't get jobs either because of their educational backgrounds or owing to their caste. And we said, why not use women as our most powerful ally in climate action? While for us it might be climate action, for them it's survival and livelihoods. So basically, Beru was started because we needed skin in the game of all stakeholders, right from local government bodies to the general public. That includes women and youngsters. We do a lot of workshops in schools and colleges because you need to have the what's in it for me connect. And we do that through arts and culture. We do that through earnings, where we train these women in climate action, and they go on to then earn a predictable monthly income with social benefits. So then it's not just quantitative improvements in their life, it's also qualitative. Where we try to be circular in the sense that we're harnessing existing government infrastructure as opposed to pressurizing rural local government bodies who are already cash. So in that sense, we are not tech dependent, but we are tech enabled, because alongside livelihoods through plastics management, where we pay fishermen to bring back plastics from the ocean and then engage the women in the community to clean, segregate, and recycle, we have vernacular waste management tracking apps, because the amount and quality of data available when it comes to waste can be termed as highly dubious at times. It's only because there's not been a concrete central effort to collect this kind of data. So for us, it becomes important to collect data on a daily basis. We do that through the app, and it's in the local language Kannada, which is the local language of Karnataka. That's the state I come from. So these women use the app. They do daily tracking for the kind of waste, the amount of waste, even the sales that happen. So in a sense, it's digital upskilling as well. So that's where we are right now in terms of use of technology. I know that there's the use of AI and ML and IoT, but that would come at a very advanced level. And I'm also sometimes afraid that it shouldn't be overkill using technology just for the sake of it. So yeah, that's
Thanks.
my Beiro story. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Divya. It's interesting to hear participants, if you've been hearing the whole connection from our opening remarks, using technology to solve the issues on the ground. Then you're hearing from Ochlon, you're hearing from Divya. Allow me now to just bring it one level up, slightly on a more macro level, because I want to ask Anbu, based on your experience, really looking at the research and development projects. Could you share with us perhaps some of the trends that you are seeing on how technology has been effective in really the whole climate action strategy? Anbu, please.
Yeah, thank you, TJ, and good morning from Delhi. And if you look into this region and particularly the developing Asia, and we can see there are three mega trends and about this technology adaptation and the climate change mitigation. The first mega trend is happening at the economy wide, where that is the most of these low carbon technologies or the renewable energy technologies being adopted. And if you look into that energy mix and the growth that is coming is mostly from the renewable energy, that investments that is we are making. And so it is a kind of a macro level and macroeconomic level. And we found many renewable energy technologies become commercially viable, and at the plant scale that has been used, for example, solar and wind, we can say it. The second mega trend is happening at the meso level, and we can see at the city level or the urban level. And here the technology focus is how this integration of this ICT technology, the digital technologies. The focus here is how these technologies and bring a service delivery, more efficient services, more in a sustainable and green way. I think Divya mentioned about this waste collection, and here we find many examples that is coming from waste to energy models, or the transport models where we use the platforms to bring that efficiency, and that also results in a kind of low carbon and kind of new pathways or the circular pathways. And the third trend and the mega trend is also happening at the micro, at the individual levels or the farm levels, where people also find much of this savings, that is, for example, energy savings or the resource use savings. And basically it also comes through the absorption of a new kind of model like ESCOs, energy service companies. And they help you bring the technologies, absorb at the lower level, at the individual level, at the farm level. And this savings and this energy savings or the emission reductions, the cost is shared between individuals and the business. I think these are the three mega trends that is we can see in the technological absorption. But we need to see that ecosystems that help this technology adopters differ. There is not a kind of one uniform formula that exists. If you take at the macroeconomic level, and most of this ecosystem is helping this technology absorption through, for example, in the producer subsidies that is given to these industries to reduce the cost. So they can compete with these other non-renewable technologies or the high intensive technologies. And if you look into these smart cities or the urban cities, and here we have a kind of a model where there is the extended enterprises, where local companies collaborate with these big technological giants to bring that efficiency gains. And third, if you look at the micro level, and here we need kind of mindset changes or the behavioral changes is happening, and that ecosystem is more from the capacity building and the sharing the best experiences. And here this ecosystem variables are different that we need to look into it. And also I find there are two micro trends in the region. These micro trends are, there is a kind of a technology plus approach. The first micro trend we can see is that this technology, both the developers and the absorbers, they look into that is markets. For example, emerging markets, the carbon markets. That is now it is happening in small scale, even at the city level. So the technology is integrated with the markets. And the second micro trend is also the financing. There is a crowd financing, and as Chamlan mentioned, and several innovative financial mechanisms are coming up that reduce these cost of technologies, but also upscale them. So thank you.
Thanks very much for sharing the trends across really the macro at the city level and over at the micro level. I want to bring, I guess, this to the next round of questions and conversations. But before that, for our participants, if you have any questions that you have for our speakers, please feel free to just drop it in the comments box. Then we'll try, to just fill it up to our speakers. As Dr. Anbu was sharing about the whole three mega trends, I guess I want to bring it, along these lines of technology. I want to bring it back to Divya first, because what you're doing with ocean plastics pollution is a very big issue. How has technology helped in Beiru's mission? And perhaps on your front, what do you think more can be done on a technological front to be able to support your efforts? Yeah, if you could share, please, Divya.
Sure. Technology has really been helpful, from a standpoint of a lot of groups on the coast may not firstly believe that they're capable of using technology to track waste, and when you customize it to their language and their context, it then shows its magic, because again technology is viewed as alien, and what we've managed to do is bring in these women and technology in their language and help them understand the use case for a circular economy. So that's why technology has been really really useful. Secondly, in terms of data collection and management itself, is right, it bears a direct impact on their livelihoods. So if they're able to track it well and honestly, and also receive analysis on the kind of waste that's coming in, what can be sold, what can't, what can be upcycled, it's all additional streams of income for them. So technology starts at that very basic level. And then we take it to the fisheries department, with whom we have an MOU in Karnataka at the moment. It's helping us also study the kind of waste that these fisheries communities are finding on their fishing trips. And a large chunk of it is actually ghost nets. We already have studies that talk about it, but then you have these communities and departments now experiencing it and studying it firsthand. So that's also where technology helps. It helps us in determining the kind of payouts that we give to these communities who are taking the efforts to bring back all the plastics that they find in the ocean. The third place where technology helps is in the material recovery facilities themselves, because it's not just tech as software, right? Like software as tech, but it's also machinery. And when we have like a base level semi automated machinery doing some of the work for these women, it also adds to the dignity of labor, I would say, as opposed to complete manual segregation, which is where we first started our pilot. So technology comes in at different phases for us. At the next phase, what we're going to do, and we're already in motion for that, is recycling. That's where technology comes in. Companies already have mandates for EPR, that's extended producer responsibility, which means they need to take back the plastics that they produce, as opposed to producing virgin plastic all over again. So your plastic granules, pellets, all of that, again, technology and machinery related. Lastly, right now we are retrieving plastics from the ocean and doing door to door collection. Next, while we are retrieving plastics from the ocean, it wouldn't be just fishermen bringing it back, but actually looking at more advanced technology to retrieve these plastics from deeper within the ocean, because right now there's a limit to the number of meters that these fishermen go into sea. In order to increase that bandwidth, we'd require more tech enabled um, tools and vessels. So, yeah, technology comes at different levels for us, but it's introduced really slowly to keep the stakeholders more comfortable.
Thank you very much, Divya. This whole thing about localizing tech, keeping stakeholders more comfortable. I would like to ask Ochlon, this question really, based on what you're doing, what are your views on the readiness of the general public to embrace the whole innovation technology for a greener future? Yeah. Do you think that they're ready? They're not? I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And when we look at technology, I think the first word that springs to my mind is probably access. And then that's something that's been, I think, at foundational to enabling and empowering communities across the world through technology. And for us, I think one of the, what we believe in is that the key to fighting climate change isn't to actually build more wind farms and solar farms, but it's actually equitable economic empowerment and development across the board, right? So only when you have communities that are empowered economically and socially to be able to sort of get on with their lives, I think that's when we can start having that effective engagement. In terms of, is the broader community, general public ready for a greener future, ready to embrace technology via sort of climate action? I think we all are. I think in terms of when we look at the discourse around climate change, I think there's been a misleading notion that this is a field that's reserved for a select few of sort of selfless, very altruistic group of people that are trying to save the planet, right? Whereas for me, it's probably one of the most selfish things that at least I'm doing, right? The reason why I'm doing this is because it's for very selfish reasons. Is I want to have a place I can live. I want my kids and family and the people that I care about to have, to live in comfort and peace, right? And the planet will be there regardless of whether humankind is in it or not, right? When you look at sort of the planet as a sort of as a being, right? So it's really what we're doing is trying to make a planet that's habitable, that's comfortable for us to live in, right? And I think that's where people sort of tend to blur the lines a bit. So I think for Eureka, what we're trying to do is, as I said, make climate investing more fun and exciting to everyday people, make it more accessible through the use of technology, and bridge that gap between all of these great entrepreneurs and project developers, that are doing great things, such as Divya. I think what you're doing is great. So how do we provide a platform that we can amplify the great initiatives that they're undertaking, and how can we connect that and then make it more accessible to ordinary everyday people that also want to do their part in against climate change, right? And I think a lot of the things that the discourse on pushing people to take climate action has been sort of based on fear mongering and drawing this very apocalyptic picture of, if you don't do something, and the world's going to come crashing down. And a lot of the individual efforts needed for ordinary people to do their part against climate changes are actually quite punitive as well. Like, as an individual, I've been asked to go vegan, vegetarian, and unfortunately, that's something as a Mongolian I can never do, right? I love my meat for all its environmental externalities, but it is what it is, right? So I think we need to find a platform, find a way, in a way that's sort of constructive, in a way that's win-win for ordinary people to be able to take up more climate action, and then empower them to be able to sort of because the sense that we get is that a lot of people want to do their part, but just there isn't a platform for them to be able to engage in that very effectively and in a way that sort of financially, economically, and socially aligns to their sort of incentives and beliefs. So yeah, I guess a short answer is yes. I think globally we're ready. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Archulon. Because I think based on what you've shared, you've also answered kind of partially a question that IU had posed, in terms of strategies. And I think based on what I've heard, it's really you've got to make it relevant to the people on the ground, so that there is a buy-in, there is also then that engagement process. And when we talk about engagement, as you've shared, really I see public-private partnerships that needs to be there. And I would dare say, engagement to the people. Yeah. So the 3 Ps for me: public, private people. So then, back to Dr. Anbu. How then do you see, or how then can these public-private partnerships be further strengthened so that all these innovations, the good work that wants to be done, it can be effectively implemented where it is most needed? Dr. Anbu, for your thoughts, please.
It is a complex field, and basically we are working on a project called Disruptive Innovations for Sustainable Future. And here we are also looking into these PPPs. And here the public-private partnership is a kind of relationship with these three stakeholders, in which this public and private and also the common resources are blended to achieve a common but differentiated goals. This is how we define a PPP. But when you think about these innovations of the greener future, and it is not only the climate change, and of course climate change is getting attention, and it is an issue that is we need to discuss and we need to solve it. But this is a part of green economy, and that has a subcomponents like Chamlan mentioned about this renewable energy. It is a part of a low carbon transition. And Divya mentioned about these waste resources, plastic. It is a circular economy. Still, we have other pressing issues like a bioeconomy and this air pollution, land uses. So this is the composite use. And here, if you think about the innovation how we can strengthen it, and when we look into this technological map, and we have established technologies, and then we do have emerging technologies, and we have the future technologies. I think it needs a kind of a different type of PPP, and Divya mentioned about the case in Karnataka, and here we also found a kind of a local wisdom, I think, exists, which is often missed in that innovation map. And for example, take the case of Japan. It is one of the country which has a very, very kind of full-fledged innovation system, where there is a nexus between the industry, policymakers, and then academia, that where all that innovations are translated into kind of a practical and common business models. So here I think how we can strengthen particularly the developing countries is to look into these emerging technologies and the future technologies, which has a lot of risks. So that need a new type of partnership, and also here we also need to look into it as a kind of social entrepreneurship models. That is we need to combine the strength of the communities and then the strength of technological providers, and as well as the venture capitalist, and basically the finance becomes a kind of an important thing, and here there is more risk lies in. So my model are the kind of proposition to this developing and emerging economy is what they are looking is a kind of a linear model, where you put the resources and the basic R&D, and after some time it will translate into a commercially viable business model. It works in some countries, and in most other countries it fails. So what we need to do is a kind of new transformative model, where we have a research and inventions and the local systems, local knowledge exists in one part. And second part, innovation and the new business models need to develop. In between is a kind of a death valley, where most of the technologies die. Or the startups or these systems could not able to pass through, and because they could not able to handle the risk alone. So that need a public and private partnership, that need risk sharing mechanisms, that also need to include these SMEs and the startups. So what I think is basically the governments, that is the public sector, which is not a monolithic. We have a different type of ministries which have their own agendas. They work and think in a silo way. So we need to take them apart from the comfort zone and focus on how they can mobilize the resources towards kind of common risk sharing mechanisms. And this could be coming from, for example, developing a seed financing that need many of the startups. That is these ideas that exist at the micro level or the community level need to be upscaled. Second thing is we need a kind of a new startup financial mechanisms, and that exists. Some countries they have it. For example, in India, the new budget is focusing on more enhancing the startups. And third one also, we need expansion financing. That is where many innovations that is happening at the low carbon or the circular innovations happening at the SME level need to be upscaled. That need an expansion financing. So I think I can say these are the kind of early stage financing is very much needed in the public private partnership model to promote these green innovations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anbu. It's been thought-provoking, to say the least. Want to thank our speakers really for the time that they've taken, and for the participants, for the questions. And I want to perhaps just quickly pose this question to Divya. And if you could share perhaps your thoughts in 1 minute before I ask for closing thoughts from the other two speakers as well. The question from Jebe was there a barrier that you encountered in using women in the implementation of Beru's mission? If you could quickly just summarize it in 1 minute.
The barrier was not from the women. Honestly, women have less ego when it comes to waste work. So there was no barrier there. But from a larger societal perspective and families' perspective, yes, waste work is still not looked at as the most desirable profession. But when that steady income starts coming and many of the women start earning more than the other family members, they're able to finance their children's education, and you see that waste really can turn to wealth. We call it garbage to gold. So we don't mean that you will make millions of dollars for these women, but they're able to sustain their livelihoods. And then you add the factor of patient capital, which Anbu sir was talking about. Financing is required, but not in the unicorn chasing sense, but you require patient capital for sustainable businesses to remain and grow sustainable. So yeah, that's the kind of resistance.
Awesome. G to G,
Yeah.
garbage to gold. That's a new acronym that we've come up with. Now, in the closing minutes, if I could just have closing thoughts from both Dr. Anbu and Ochlon, just about half a minute each. What would be one take-home message that you want to leave with our participants? Yeah, perhaps Ochlon first. Yeah, just in half a minute, a quick one.
Sure. I think there's this quote that I read. I don't know who said it, but I think that the biggest threat that we're facing is the notion that someone else will save us from this climate disaster. I think that speaks reasonably well to what's happening right now. And for us, I think we are certain that when you look at humankind collectively as to where we are right now, it's some pretty amazing things that we've done, that we're capable of doing if we put our minds to it, right? So I think I remain very optimistic that we'll be able to face this challenge head on. But I think for us, the key is how do we make sure that the funds that are needed to get where they are to be able to effectively finance these solutions. How do we put in a platform? I think that's key. And when we look at historically crowdfunding, getting everyone involved has been a pretty good way of efficiently marshaling funds to where they're needed the most. So I think what I would say is that everyone has and can play a role in the fight against climate change. So please, don't sort of feel like you're not you won't make an impact, and it's everyone's I think impact will make a difference.
Thanks, Archelon. Dr. Anbu, a quick half a minute closing thoughts from you.
Okay, and that, my take or my last thinking is when we are thinking about the sustainable future, and there is a perceptual and the knowledge gap, and the gap is that is the becoming a green or becoming a sustainable is too costly and we cannot afford it. And this is not the case. And basically, if you look into this net benefits and environmental benefits, economic benefits, and also and the kind of social benefits and what we are paying, and this is a small miniature and to bring that and so that need a kind of more studies that show that is these models could be a transformative, and also it could bring a kind of a new type of growth that is we needed. That is a quality growth. That is what it means.
Okay.
And the question is, if you, I think everybody is interested in growth, but if you are in high speed but in the wrong direction, and that growth doesn't mean anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've had a lot of nuggets from our speakers today. I want to thank all of you so much for your time. And we will wrap up session 1 here. For participants, please, look them up on LinkedIn, connect with them. I think you have been given many things to think about today. As those who may want to go to session 2, it will start in about 2 minutes time. So if you want to, just please leave this session and then go into the next one. So once again, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Anbu, Archelon, Divya, we really appreciate it. Have a good future.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Okay.